Hello, I'm Susan Woods of Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions, and I thank you for your time. I want to give you a short preview of the Ultimate Grant Writing Bootcamp. Again, I want to give you a short preview of the Ultimate Grant Writing Bootcamp that I am offering to help people learn how to write corporate, foundation, and government grant proposals. This is just a preview of the entire bootcamp, but just to give you an opportunity to see how I teach, the quality of the content of my work, and also to see how the practice activities are completed. So here we are. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the preview of the Ultimate Grant Writing Bootcamp. Hello, and welcome to the Ultimate Grant Writing Bootcamp, in which you can win $25,000 if you accept the challenge. I'm Susan Woods of Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions, and here are my credentials so that you can see my qualifications for being able to offer the Ultimate Grant Writing Bootcamp. So again, welcome. Welcome to the Ultimate Grant Writing Bootcamp. There are billions of dollars in tax-free money available for 501c3 nonprofit organizations to use for community services. That's what grant money is typically used for, to provide community services. So you made the right decision to learn how to write corporate, foundation, and government grant proposals for your nonprofit organization. I'm offering a money back guarantee, which lets you know that I am very confident that this boot camp will benefit you. You will be prepared to generate at least $25,000 in grant funding for your nonprofit organization within 6 months after completing the Ultimate Grant Writing Bootcamp, or I will give you your money back. That's my guarantee. That's how confident I am that if you complete this course the way that it's outlined, if you complete all of the activities, if you pass the knowledge checks with at least 80% score, within 6 months after completing this boot camp, you should have $25,000 in grant money in your nonprofit's bank account. If you don't, I will refund your enrollment fee 100%. So let's prepare for success in this course. The Ultimate Grant Writing Bootcamp is a hybrid learning experience. Hybrid meaning you're going to learn in two ways. You're going to learn by completing activities on your own independently, and you will also learn by attending coaching sessions with me. So it's a hybrid learning experience. Some people call it a blended learning experience, but you're learning in two ways. So you will read the content that I provide, just like you're reading it here on the screen. You will listen to me, just like you're doing now, um, sharing the content or elaborating on the content. You will complete the practice exercises or activities and the knowledge checks independently. And you would do these things at your pace, around your schedule, in the comfort, privacy, and safety of your home. That's the independent part. You will have the option to meet for group coaching sessions on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to ask questions and to discuss your progress in this 4-week boot camp. So you will have an opportunity to schedule or participate in coaching sessions with other people who are also completing this boot camp at the same time that you are. But if you prefer, you can also reserve private one-to-one coaching sessions with me to discuss specific aspects of the boot camp. So this is how we're preparing for success. setting the stage, letting you know the expectations and how you can be successful. Here are the learning objectives. Upon completion of the Ultimate Grant Writing Boot Camp, you will be able to complete the following tasks with confidence. Number one, locate requests for grant proposals for your nonprofit. Number two, write corporate, foundation, and government grant proposals. Number three, submit grant proposals to grant funders according to guidelines. Number four, evaluate grant proposals to learn grading criteria. Number five, start a lucrative home based grant writing business. And number six, hire professional grant writers for your nonprofit. If you get to the end and you decide, I don't know if this is what I want or not, at least you would know how to hire someone else to write grant proposals for you. So those are the learning objectives. The boot camp format. I'm going to use a scenario as a thread that runs through the boot camp. So it's going to be one scenario of a community issue that needs to be solved. And I'm going to share that with you. And that's going to be the thread throughout the entire boot camp. You're going to have modules to complete. In those modules, you'll have lessons, you'll have knowledge checks, practice activities. And then again, as I mentioned, you'll have a chance to have coaching sessions with me or in a group. You can also participate in a Facebook group page where other people who are completing the boot camp will be sharing their advice, sharing tips for success, sharing their struggles, challenges, whatever. But it'll be a community for you to participate in if you choose. The learning style that I am used to advocating includes sequential presentation. Okay. I'm going to present information to you in a sequential order so that it makes sense. I don't jump around to different topics that don't flow correctly. Everything is presented in a sequential format for you to follow easily. I rely upon my educational credentials to share information with you as well. My background in the nonprofit sector, as well as my background in curriculum development, in the corporate environment, and most importantly, my experience writing grant proposals for my own nonprofit organization. Real life experiences, I will weave those in to the training as well. Transparent analogies. I think it's important to be honest and transparent about things that have happened to me as a grant writer and stumbling blocks that I had to overcome. So, this is the learning style that I'm going to advocate for you to adopt and rely upon for this training. So, now let's jump into Module 1. Module 1 includes 2 lessons. Lesson 1 is Introduction to Grant Writing. Lesson 2 is Grant Proposal Components. So let's go ahead and dig in. Module 1, Lesson 1. And you see the layout. You see the module number and the lesson number and the title of the module, which is Introduction to Grant Writing, Step-by-Step Guidance and Practice. What is grant writing? Well, before we can talk about what is grant writing, we need to talk about what is a grant. A grant is tax-free money that grant funders award to nonprofits to provide community services and stimulate the economy. So when a nonprofit organization receives a grant or tax-free money, the intent is for them to use that money to provide community services. And then once you provide community services, depending upon what they are, the potential is high for your nonprofit organization to help stimulate the economy. So that's what a grant is. The second thing we must know is, what is a grant proposal? A grant proposal is a formal document or a set of documents that an organization or individual submits to a funding agency. Some people call them grant funders, but funding agency, to request financial support for a specific project or program. So you're asking for money through a grant proposal. You're going to write the grant proposal to ask for money for a specific project or program. Maybe it's something like an after school program to help children learn to read better. You will write a grant proposal to request a grant for that opportunity or to offer that service. And then finally, so what is grant writing then? Grant writing is the process to locate grant opportunities and write grant proposals accordingly. So when you want to write grant, what is grant writing? That is a process. It's the process you use to locate grant opportunities or grant money and then write a grant proposal to request that money. That's what grant writing is. All right. So let's keep going. Module 1, Lesson 2, Grant Proposal Components. We're going to only discuss in this section grant components 1 through 5. There are 10 grant proposal components, but we're going to focus on the first 5 in this module. So grant proposal components. The standard grant proposal includes 10 components. That's the standard grant proposal, which is some people may call the basic grant proposal or the general grant proposal. But it's the one that you should write and save for reference in the future. Every nonprofit leader should write a standard grant proposal for their nonprofit organization to include all of the components that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. And then when you are ready to apply for specific grant money, then you can leverage the standard grant proposal for that reason. So, again, the standard grant proposal includes 10 components. Grant funders expect grant proposals to focus on one solution to the problem. I wrote that incorrectly. But grant funders expect grant proposals to focus on one solution to the problem. Therefore, 10% of the grant proposal should clearly describe the problem, and 90% of the grant proposal should explain the solution to the problem. In this lesson, we will define the first 5 components of a standard grant proposal. Here we are. Grant proposal components. Number 1, problem statement. 2, program vision. 3, program mission. 4, qualitative objectives. 5, quantitative goals. 6, program description. 7, program budget. 8, implementation plan. 9, evaluation plan. 10, sustainability plan. So those are the 10 components of a standard grant proposal, okay? And again, the problem statement should comprise only 10% of the entire grant proposal. Now, let's look at the problem statement. What is the problem statement? The problem statement is a compilation of the needs analysis data in a report format that is easy to read and compelling. It should evoke a sense of urgency in investing in the community. So, the problem statement lays out the foundation of the issue because there's no need to ask for grant money if there's not a problem that you want to solve. So, what is the problem? Well, you explain it in a statement, the problem statement. And you've already done your homework. You've already done a needs analysis to make sure that what you see as a problem in the community is actually a problem in the community. For example, you may see that homelessness is a problem in the community, in your opinion, because you have a home and you feel like everybody should have a home, and it's a problem if people don't have a home. That's what you think. But is it actually a problem in the community? Is it really a problem? That's where you have to do your homework to make sure that it is, to make sure it's not just you. So here is an example of a problem statement that I wrote to support the need or to prove that there is a need for sustainable food resources. So the problem statement explains that there are food deserts in certain neighborhoods. And you will see that I have references in the problem statement, and that's something that you want to offer as well. You want to reference credible sources that can back up what you're saying and substantiate the fact that there are problems or there is a problem in the community that needs to be solved using grant money. So I referenced the National Institute of Health and the Annie E. Casey Foundation, as well as the U.S. Department of Agriculture, to make my point. To make my point. And you will also notice that they are linked. So if someone wants to actually confirm the validity of my information, they can click on the links and see it for themselves. And that's the benefit nowadays of being able to submit your grant proposals online. Because when you do that, it's easy to link the data so that the grant specialist that's reviewing your grant proposal for funding can click on the links and say, oh, that is true. I can see where they got that information. And that adds credibility to your work. And here is an elaboration on the problem statement specifically for this particular community. So if you want to drill down, you want to give like an overview of the problem, and then you want to drill down to the specific service area you're planning to serve. That's critical. You want to drill down to that and explain what's going on in the specific area in which you want to serve. That's critical. So on this page, I drill down to the Clio, South Carolina area, and then I go to another online resource called Data USA to find information about that particular area because you want to paint a picture in the mind of the people who are um, reading your application because they don't know where this is. They don't know where Clio, South Carolina is. They probably pronounce it Clio because they don't have a clue as to where it's located. So it's your job to paint the picture of the area you want to serve to make sure people understand why it's important to provide grant funding for the services you want to offer in that community. So let's summarize here. What problem exists in the community? Still talking about the problem statement. What target group experiences the problem? How long has the problem persisted? What statistical data or evidence validates the need? So all of these questions should have been answered in the problem statement. So you want to make sure that all of these questions are answered in the problem statement. So, how are you feeling right now? How are you feeling as I pause before I go to the other components in the grant proposal that we're going to talk about today? How do you feel? Do you like the way that I'm presenting the information? Is it easy to follow? Um, is it something that you feel, or the information, do you feel the information will benefit you if you were to enroll in the Ultimate Grant Writing Boot Camp? Okay. Because this is the way that it works. I'm going to share information with you in this format. You're going to hear me elaborating on the information. You will be able to download a PDF version of this information for you to use and write on, and as I go through, you can print it out and write on it as I go through. So this is the way that this course is going to work. Okay. So let's keep going. I hope that you are enjoying this format. So we talked about the problem statement. Now we're going to talk about the program vision, program mission, qualitative objectives, quantitative goals. Okay, the first five. We're not talking about, we're not going to elaborate on the last five or 6 through 10, but I will just show you what they are again. 6, program description. 7, program budget. 8, implementation plan. 9, evaluation plan. And 10, sustainability plan. So these are the categories that are considered the solution components of the grant proposal. Solution components of the grant proposal. So the solution would take up 90% of the grant proposal. 90%. So what does that say to you? That says that grant funders want to know what the problem is. They have to know what the problem is in order to solve it, but they don't want you to stay on it too long. Tell me what the problem is, which is the food desert in Clio, South Carolina. There's no high quality food choices in Clio. Now tell me what you want to do to solve that problem with the money you're asking us to provide. That's basically what the grant funder is thinking. So let's go ahead and take a look at these program vision, program mission, qualitative objectives, and quantitative goals. And in the next module, module 2, we'll talk about the components 6 through 10. So here we are. The solution is a community garden. That's the solution that we want to present to the grant funder or to the entity that has the money to solve this problem through a grant. So the solution, once again, is a community garden. So Betty decided to meet with her board of directors to propose establishing a huge community garden on an empty acre of land in Clio, South Carolina. After receiving the board's approval, she would dust off her grant writing skills to start writing grant proposals to generate the revenues she needs to establish a community garden to not only provide healthy, nutritious vegetables, but to also facilitate classes to teach children how to grow vegetables, to define the vegetables, and to explain nutritious values, and to demonstrate an understanding between eating vegetables and having a healthy body. Betty has a burst of energy and excitement. She's ready to make a difference in her community by securing corporate, foundation, and government grant funding. Betty is going to use the information in the Ultimate Grant Writing Bootcamp to refresh her her grant proposal writing skills by completing the remaining components of the grant writing process. So this is the solution. Betty is the person who wants to offer a community garden in Clio, South Carolina to provide healthy and nutritious foods. Not only that, she wants to have a generational impact by teaching children the gift of gardening. So let's get started looking at the remaining components of the grant proposal that we're going to study in Module 1 of the Grant Writing Bootcamp. Number 2 of 10, or of the 5 we're going to talk about right now, is a vision statement. The vision statement is a broad statement that describes long term positive change, or the word now instead of change is impact. The grant funder wants to know what is the impact, or what is the potential impact of what you want to do in the community. So, for example, your vision statement could be establish a community garden to eliminate the food deserts. That's what a vision statement is. It's broad. It doesn't tell you how we're going to do it. It doesn't give you all of the details. It just tells you what will be done with your money. And when you are writing a grant proposal, always think in terms of the grant funder. What are they thinking? What are they thinking? Right? How do they feel? Always try to appeal to them with your wording. Number 3, the mission statement. The mission statement explains how to realize the vision. So, if you want to establish a community garden and have long term impact, how do you do that? Well, the mission statement has to explain that. So, for example, the mission statement could be we plan to establish a huge community garden with fresh vegetables year round. So, that explains the how you're going to realize the broad vision. Okay. Number 4, qualitative objectives. Qualitative objectives measures changes in behaviors in terms of outcomes over a certain period of time. So, with the qualitative objective, you are monitoring your client's behaviors. So, you have to benchmark in order to note a change. You have to benchmark. For example, if you introduced a tomato to a child, what would be their behavior toward that introduction? Would they be, oh, yay, thank you, I'm excited about learning about tomatoes? I doubt it. I doubt it. They will probably have a negative reaction because they don't know what it is. They don't know what it is. So it's a behavioral change that grant funders list as outcomes. Whenever you see a grant application that says, what are the anticipated outcomes of your program, they are asking you, what are the anticipated behavioral changes that your program will create within your clients? So, for example, the community members will feel better about their health by eating healthy vegetables. So they'll feel better. That's the behavioral change. They're going to feel better about what? Their health, because they're eating healthy vegetables. So be able to list at least 3 to 5 outcomes or behavioral changes in your grant proposal. Now, number 5 is quantitative goals. The quantitative goals measures outputs in realistic quantitative terms, such as we will distribute 500 pounds of vegetables weekly, teach 100 children to create vegetable gardens annually, deliver 200 vegetable baskets to the elderly monthly. You see how you can visualize these quantitative goals? That's what they are. They measure outputs in realistic. The key word here is realistic. You have to be realistic because the grant funder is going to look at your grant proposal as a whole. And if you list 3 people as your volunteers in your grant proposal and you're saying we're going to distribute 10,000 pounds of vegetables weekly, they know that is not realistic. And grant funders will not provide money for unrealistic goals. So just be honest and realistic about what you can do with the people that you have and the resources that you have. So you can see how easy it is to evaluate whether or not you met these outputs, right? So, because grant funding, we're going to talk about it in the next half of our components, the importance of knowing how to evaluate your work. So, you can evaluate whether or not somebody distributed 500 pounds of vegetables weekly. That's easy to do. You can evaluate whether or not you taught 100 children in 1 year. You can evaluate whether or not you delivered 200 vegetable baskets to the elderly each month. So you can evaluate these things. So for that reason, list your outputs once again realistically. That's important. So now, summary and review of this section. Let's take a moment to summarize and review what you learned in Module 1. 10% of the grant proposal is allocated toward clearly describing the problem. 10%. 90% of the grant proposal is allocated toward describing the solution. Standard grant proposals include 10 components. Outcomes measure behavioral changes. Outputs measure quantitative deliverables. So that's what we've learned. So Module 1, knowledge check. A knowledge check is another word for a quiz, or it's the same as a quiz, might as well say. So, knowledge check number 1, directions. Answer the following questions to determine how well you are learning. Question 1, which grant proposal component measures behavioral change? Question 2, the statement food deserts cause illnesses is an example of what component of a standard grant proposal? Question number 3, adding the word by to the vision statement helps you write which component of a standard grant proposal. Question number 4, the statement we plan to distribute 50 baskets of vegetables is an example of which component of the standard grant proposal. And question number 5, which grant proposal component is a broad statement that describes long-term positive change? So those are the knowledge check questions. How do you feel? Do you know all of the answers? Do you feel confident? Or do you need to go back through and find answers to some of the ones that you cannot answer? If that's the case, it's okay. That's fine. That is okay. That's fine to do that if you need to. But here are the answers. Question number 1 answer is qualitative objectives. Question number 2, problem statement. Question 3, mission statement. Question 4, quantitative goals. And question 5, vision statement. So how do you feel about the way the knowledge check was presented to you? How do you feel about that? Okay. Now we're at the end here. And like I said, each module is going to have at least one practice activity for you to complete just to make sure that you understand. So now is the time to practice what you've learned so far. The practice activity provides you the opportunity to write the 5 components of the standard grant proposal for a community garden in your hometown. Now let me pause here for a moment. If you are taking this course to learn how to write grant proposals for a specific nonprofit organization that doesn't have anything to do with the community garden, you don't have to write about a community garden. You can write about whatever it is, whatever problem you're solving in your community, and it'll give you good practice. So here, in the place of community garden, you can replace it with whatever issue you're solving in your community. So now you go down to here and it says use these steps to complete the practice activity. Click here to open the practice activity. This is a link that takes you to the practice activity that you will complete online and submit it to me for grading. So click here to open the practice activity, complete the practice activity, and then submit the practice activity, and it will come directly to me for me to review and provide a grade. That's how it works. So great job. You have completed module 1. So this is how it's laid out, ladies and gentlemen. Now it gets more complex. This is the easy part. It gets more complex as we go through the different modules and the different lessons. This is a 4-week boot camp that allows you to complete your work. And I have given you, well, you will receive a calendar to show you what to complete each day of the boot camp to let you stay on track. So you don't have to wonder, what should I complete today or how many should I do today? You're going to have a list of things to complete each day of the boot camp. So you won't have to wonder if you're on track or not. Again, I also include the coaching sessions that help you stay on task. You can meet with coaching sessions with the group, other people who are in the boot camp, or you can meet one on one with me if you prefer. And finally, don't forget that you do have the Facebook group page that you can use to communicate with people as well. That's another resource that you can use because sometimes you may just have a question, or you may even want somebody to look at your work and give you feedback before you submit it to me for a grade. Because remember, your homework assignments or your assignments are due on Fridays by 11 p.m. and I will grade them on Saturdays. If you don't earn at least an 85% on your homework, you cannot go to the next week. See, new weeks start on Mondays. But if you don't pass, you have to go back and revise your work and try again. I'm not going to give you the full 4-week curriculum until, because that's not helpful. I've learned that the hard way myself personally. That's not helpful to get a whole lot of work because sometimes that seems overwhelming and you end up not doing the work. So 1 week at a time, pass the work, and then I open up the next week for you to do the work. Okay. Thank you for that. So what's next? Up next we have module 2, and module 2 lesson 1 is grant proposal components, and that would be 6 through 10. Then we have lesson 2, we'll talk about types of grant proposals. And lesson 3, we'll talk about grant writing tips and mistakes. Okay, talk about the mistakes too. So, are you ready to join us? Are you ready to join the boot camp? It's 4 weeks. It opens every Monday. Every Monday, a new group of people jump on board on the boot camp. Okay. Your return on investment will pay dividends for years. Your investment is only, brace yourself, $450 for 4 weeks, for video recorded lessons, for practice activities, for knowledge checks that you're going to submit for a grade from me, and then a final grant proposal um, submission exercise where you have to write a grant proposal and actually submit it. So your return on investment will pay dividends for years to come because you're going to leverage this new skill set to write grant proposals for your organization. Instead of worrying about how to do it, you will know how to do it and you won't have to hire anybody else to do it for you. If $450 is not in your budget, I offer payment plans. You can divide it into 2 payments or you can divide it into 3 payments. And you don't have to wait to pay the whole 450 to join. Let's say you use the 3 payment option of $150 per month for 3 months. As soon as you pay $150, you're in. So what is the excuse? Finally, if you just cannot make the commitment right now, I invite you to join my free Tuesday Q&A calls where I answer questions about the grant writing process. This Tuesday, I'm going to answer the featured question, can fiscal sponsors accept grant awards for your nonprofit until you earn 501c3 status? Every Tuesday. Information about joining is in the description. I'm Susan Woods of Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you in a boot camp soon.